Hey there, tonight we're going somewhere quiet. No machines, no notifications, no fluorescent lights humming above your head. Just the slow world, worn wooden beams, fields sighing in the dark, and the deep hush of a village that forgot to keep time. We're going back to the Middle Ages, but not for war, not for famine, not even for survival. This time, we're going back to sleep. Because medieval peasants, despite their hunger, despite the cold, despite the dirt under their fingernails, slept better than most of us do now. And not by accident, by rhythm, by instinct, by something we've forgotten. This video isn't about fantasy, it's about rest, real rest, the kind that settles into your chest and stays. So if this kind of calm, immersive history helps you fall asleep, feel free to like the video and subscribe. And if you're still awake at the end, let me know in the comments. What time is it where you are? And where are you listening from? Because even scattered across time zones and screens, we're all just people trying to drift off a little easier. So breathe deep, let your shoulders drop. Let's find out why peasants, of all people, might have unlocked the best sleep in history. There's no clock in your home, no ticking hands, no digital glare. Just the sky. That's your timekeeper. And when it turns, so do you. Evening starts slowly here. The sun dips behind the treetops. The wind goes soft, and the sounds change. Chickens settle. The last clinks of metal from the blacksmith fade. A cart creaks in the distance, heading nowhere fast. And above it all, the sky folds into darkness. Not in a rush, but like a long exhale. This is the first secret. Your body listens to the light. You don't stay up after dark unless you have to. Candle wax is precious. Firewood even more. No one wastes either on a whim. And so, when the sun disappears, most things do too. Chores, conversation, work. They all end when the light ends. Inside your cottage there is no lamp, no bulb. Just a single flame, maybe two. A rushlight, burning tallow that smells faintly of old meat and herbs. Its glow doesn't flood the room. It spills slowly like honey. Warm, faint, flickering. The walls glow amber. Your bed, a wooden frame packed with straw and topped with wool, casts a soft shadow. There's no buzz, no hum. The only sound is the crackle of the hearth and the shifting of your own limbs beneath a blanket that still smells of smoke and the last wash in the stream. And you're tired. Not caffeine deprived, not restless. Tired. Because you've worked since dawn. Walked miles, hauled water, pulled weeds, lifted, bent, stirred, stitched. You didn't count steps. You earned every one. So, by the time dust settles fully, your body has nothing left to argue with. There is no second wind. There is no just one more episode. There is only now. Sleep isn't a negotiation. It's a surrender. You undress slowly, layers peeled off by muscle memory. You stretch, not for health, but because your back demands it. You climb into bed not like it's a reward, but like it's part of breathing, and you close your eyes with the certainty that nothing more needs to be done, because the sun has gone, and so have you. The night isn't one long stretch here, it breathes. That's the second secret. They didn't sleep once, they slept twice. It's called segmented sleep now, but for them, it was just normal. You went to bed not expecting to stay there until morning. You slept your first sleep deep and heavy, 3, maybe 4 hours. Then you woke. Not startled, not groggy, just woke. The house was still, the coals low. You could hear the wind through the thatch, the chickens shifting in their boxes, the slow creak of beams adjusting to the cold, and no one panicked. This was the quiet hour between rests, a time when thoughts softened, when prayers were whispered, not shouted. Some rose to stoke the fire, some sat with their hands wrapped around a warm mug of ale or milk. Some just lay there, not quite asleep, not quite awake, letting the mind wander gently where it wanted to go. No one told them to do this. No book instructed it. Their bodies just knew. Because without artificial light, without screens, without alarms, we fall into rhythms deeper than habit. We fall into biology. And after an hour, sometimes two, the second sleep came. Softer, stranger. This was the sleep of dreams, the one people remembered, the one where visions were said to appear, where ancestors whispered, where wolves howled in forests you'd never seen, and lovers returned from far-off lands. This was the sleep that poets tried to write about and always fell short. You didn't need a melatonin tablet or a podcast. You just needed darkness and time. In modern terms, you'd call it a sleep cycle reset, a chance to wake gently, then fall again into the deeper water. But they didn't use those words. They just knew the world slept in two halves, and between them, something sacred waited. You don't sleep on a rectangle of engineered foam. There's no king-sized mattress, no headboard, no orthopedic memory-laced technology. You sleep in something real, something shaped by hand, not by a factory. The medieval bed is humble, wooden, low to the ground or built up high enough to keep away from rats and drafts. Sometimes it's little more than a frame of rope or slats covered in sackcloth and stuffed with straw, feathers or wool. Sometimes it's a chest with a lid, where the bedding is packed tight inside during the day and unfolded each night like a ritual. It creaks, it shifts, it smells faintly of hay, smoke and old linen. And it's yours. You build your nest inside it. Woolen blankets, folded skins, a linen sheet if you're fortunate. Everything layered for warmth, not style. No matching sets, no thread counts. Just cloth that's been patched and repurposed until it's as soft as second skin. But here's the secret. It's not the bed that makes the sleep. It's how your body fits into it. You lie curled, fetal, knees tucked in, shoulder burrowed into the padding. Not sprawled, not spread like a fallen tree. The bed cradles you, not the other way around. Your spine falls into a curve it learned through years of labour, not posture correction. There are no positions, no names for how you sleep, you just do. And if there are others beside you, and there often are, you shift around each other like roots beneath the soil. Children sleep alongside parents, siblings curled against each other's warmth. Not out of affection necessarily, but because it's warm, because heat is shared. Sometimes the bed is small, so small you sleep half-seated, propped against a wall or curled into a ball, and still you sleep, because you're not looking for comfort, you're looking for rest. And the body, if left alone, knows how to find it. There are no settings to adjust, no numbers to track, no app to check in the morning, just the simple shape of a human being, tired from the day, folded back into the quiet. There's no central heating, no thermostat, no hum in the walls, only the fire. It's not just a source of warmth, it's a member of the household, alive, needy, temperamental, and when night falls it doesn't go out, it settles in, just like you. That's the fourth secret. The fire sleeps with you. You feed it last, just before lying down. A few thick logs carefully arranged. Not too many. Wood is precious. You leave space between them so they smoulder instead of blaze. The goal isn't light, not now. It's endurance. The coals glow like breathing embers in a chest. Soft, red, steady. They won't last till dawn, but they'll hold the cold at bay for the deepest part of night. Just long enough to keep frost from forming on your breath. You fall asleep with the fire beside you. It becomes your clock. You wake briefly to check its light. If it's gone dark, you rise and feed it, gently, quietly, without fuss. You know the rhythm of its needs, and it knows yours. Sometimes you wake to smoke, not dangerous, just thick. It curls through the beams, hangs in the rafters, settles in your clothes. You're used to it. You even find comfort in it. The scent tells you the fire is alive, still with you, still watching. There's no blue light to mess with your melatonin, no glowing screen. Just the warmth of flame, the crackle of wood, the glow that makes every shadow on the wall seem ancient and slow. And with that warmth comes silence. No hum of distant traffic, no passing cars, just the fire, the breath of the sleeping bodies around you, and the rustle of wind through a window that doesn't quite close. And when the fire finally dies, you don't panic. You curl tighter, let the chill nip at your nose. Trust that your body and the sun will bring the warmth back in time, because in the Middle Ages you didn't sleep through the fire. You slept with it, like an old friend, or a watchful dog, or a heart glowing in the middle of the dark. To sleep well, you have to let go. And to let go, you have to feel safe. But medieval peasants didn't think of the dark as frightening. Not really. Not like we do now, lit and blinking through the night, trying to chase it away with bulbs and blue light. To them, the dark wasn't a threat. It was a boundary, a sacred one. That's the fifth secret. They trusted the night to be what it was. When the sun went down, so did the day. So did your obligations, so did the voices of others. There was no working late, no one more thing, no candle dragged to the corner of the table to keep going past your limits. If you stayed up too long, it was because something was wrong. Someone was sick. Something was broken. Otherwise, you stopped, because the world did. And in that stopping, something happened that we've mostly lost. You accepted the dark, not as a problem to solve, but as a rhythm to respect. There were no floodlights on the barn, no glow from the neighbour's kitchen, just night. Proper, black-boned, star-flecked night. A darkness you could lean into, one that wrapped you, not with fear, but with permission. It was a time for stories, yes, for prayer, for hushed talk, for fire-watching, for resting hands and wandering thoughts. But eventually, even those fell away, and the dark became silence. And in silence, the mind has nowhere to run, nowhere to scroll, nowhere to perform, only stillness. And stillness is a rare kind of comfort. So you pulled the wool over your shoulders, turned toward the wall, breathed in the scent of smoke and straw, and fell asleep. Not fighting the dark, not hiding from it, but letting it take you. Because in those nights, nothing was expected of you. You didn't need to be productive. You just needed to be tired. We talk about being tired like it's a flaw, like something's wrong with us for feeling it. We drink coffee to fight it, take pills to mute it, stretch and scroll and overstimulate ourselves into forgetting it's even there. But, for a medieval peasant, tiredness wasn't the enemy. It was a signal, a reward, a kind of rightness. That's the sixth secret. Sleep came not from exhaustion, but from fulfillment. Because when you spend your whole day with your body, your actual physical body, you don't need to trick it into rest. The fatigue doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from something real. You lifted, pulled, dug, sewed. You carried water in buckets that carved grooves into your shoulders. You climbed hills with baskets. You walked back and forth across a field so many times you stopped counting. You crouched to mend a fence, stood to sweep the hearth, knelt to tend the fire, and stood again when someone knocked at the door. You weren't tracking steps. You were living them. And by the time the sun faded into dusk, your body wasn't confused. It didn't wonder why it was tired at 7 p.m. It didn't argue. It had nothing left to say. That kind of tiredness is honest. It's clean. It asks nothing from you but surrender. It doesn't mean you weren't sore. You were, often. But your muscles ached from use, not from tension. Your bones creaked, not from anxiety, but from effort, a kind of slow earned fatigue that made the mattress, no matter how humble, feel like a gift instead of a last resort. No energy left to fidget, no nerves left to pace, just a body, spent, and a mind, finally quiet. It's no wonder you slept well, because you earned your tiredness. And when that happens, sleep doesn't hide, it comes. You don't realize how loud the modern world is until you step into a place without it. Not quiet, not hushed, silent. That's the seventh secret to peasant sleep. They slept inside a silence we can barely imagine. No electricity meant no constant hum, no buzz of refrigerators, no pipes rattling through walls, no motors, no passing cars, no airplanes overhead, no streetlights flickering or glowing. The loudest thing at night was you. Your breathing, your shifting under the blanket, maybe the fire, if it hadn't died down completely. A snore across the room, the crack of frost creeping along the beams, a dog turning in its sleep beneath the bed, but everything else? Still. And that silence wasn't empty. It was full of calm, full of space, full of the kind of atmosphere that wraps around your ears and makes your heartbeat feel louder than it should. No earplugs needed. No sound machine to drown out the neighbours or the city. The world itself was the sound machine, and its setting was peace. If there was noise, it meant something. An owl, a wind shift, a branch snapping outside. But even those sounds weren't interruptions. They were part of the silence, like punctuation in a long, soft sentence. You didn't fall asleep fighting 100 small sounds for your attention. You simply lay down and let the silence do its work. And it did. It soaked into the walls, into your limbs, into your thoughts. It slowed your breath, quieted your mind, pulled your pulse downward, not like a rope, but like a tide, because sometimes sleep doesn't need help, it just needs less noise. And in the Middle Ages, silence wasn't rare, it was normal. Forget the single bed, the isolated room, the everyone gets their own space mindset. In the medieval world, sleep was shared. That's the eighth secret. Sleep was a communal act, not a private one. You didn't tuck yourself into a quiet, sealed chamber. You curled beside others, siblings, parents, sometimes neighbours or guests, whatever made the most sense, whoever needed warmth. Beds weren't divided by doors or do not disturb signs. They were divided by needs. If there was one fire, everyone slept near it. If there was one room, everyone shared it. And if you were cold, you reached for whoever was closest. You didn't need to explain it, or feel strange about it, because sleep wasn't personal, it was practical. That closeness meant heat. It meant protection. It meant breathing together, literally. Each body a small furnace, each breath adding softness to the air. The more bodies in the room, the more steady the temperature. That mattered more than privacy ever could. It wasn't always comfortable. People snored, twitched, mumbled. Some rolled over and stole the blanket. Children kicked in their dreams. Someone might talk in their sleep about things they'd never dare say in daylight. But you got used to it. You adapted. You learned to sleep while someone coughed 2 feet away. You found comfort in knowing you weren't alone in the dark. Even the rhythm of sleep became shared. First sleep, then waking, then second sleep. You might all rouse together, shift positions, whisper a few soft words, then drift off again. No headphones, no white noise, just people. Warm skin, shared silence, the steady reassurance of breath beside your own. And that's the part we forget. Sometimes sleep isn't better when it's solitary. Sometimes what you need most is not stillness, but presence. The world didn't wake them up. That's the ninth secret. Once they fell asleep, they stayed asleep. Not because of melatonin, not because of weighted blankets, but because nothing pulled them out of it. No phone lit up at midnight. No alarm startled them into confusion. No sirens, notifications, buzzing, vibrating, flashing. The night stayed dark, and it stayed quiet. The only things that might wake you were real. A child crying, a dog barking, the fire dying out, rain on the roof. You woke only when something mattered, and even then it wasn't a jolt. It was a nudge, a natural rise from a natural sleep. Their minds weren't trained to expect disruption. There was no mental noise waiting to drag them out of rest. They didn't go to bed thinking about inboxes or deadlines. They didn't lie awake with screen glow still fading behind their eyes. When their heads hit the pillow, or straw mattress, or folded cloak, they didn't flip through to-do lists. They were finished. Not enough for now, but done. Sleep was not a retreat from the day. It was the next step in the rhythm of living. And because nothing screamed at them in the night, their bodies were allowed to move deep into the kind of sleep where muscles repair, thoughts reorder, breath slows to the bare minimum needed, the kind of sleep that leaves no trace behind but rest itself. Sure, they was woken sometimes, by wind, by a baby, by the ache in their legs. But when that happened, they knew what to do. They didn't scroll. They didn't reach for something to fill the space. They lay still, let the moment pass, and slipped back under, because their nights weren't built for interruption. They were built for continuation, and so was their sleep. We dream every night, so did they. But here's the 10th secret. They didn't shrug dreams off. They listened to them. In the medieval world, dreams weren't random. They weren't just echoes of the day or brain static. Dreams had weight. They meant something. Warnings, messages, glimpses of something hidden. You didn't wake and say, "That was weird." You woke and asked, "What does it mean?" If you dreamed of wolves, you told someone. If you dreamed of falling, you whispered it to the old woman who knew signs. If you dreamed of fire or floods or strange birds, it wasn't just you. It was everyone's concern. And that changed how you slept. Because you didn't see sleep as a switch, you saw it as a crossing from the world of waking to the world of signs, a place where the sacred spoke. So you prepared for it, not just with comfort, but with intention. You might say a prayer, not to fall asleep faster, but to guard your spirit in the hours when your body would be still. You might whisper the names of saints, ask for protection, ask for understanding, not because you were afraid, but because you respected where sleep would take you. And when you woke up, you carried your dreams with you. You shared them over morning bread. You remembered them on long walks to the fields. You didn't always understand them, but you never ignored them. Because even a peasant with dirt under their nails could carry a dream that felt like it belonged to kings. And maybe that's why their sleep ran deeper than ours. Because it wasn't just rest, it was a journey. And every night they crossed that bridge, not to escape life, but to understand it. You didn't check a clock, you didn't count backwards from 8 hours. You didn't set a bedtime or force your body into someone else's framework. You simply slept when your body asked you to. That's the 11th secret. Sleep wasn't scheduled, it was sensed. There was no shame in yawning before sunset, no guilt in dozing off after a long afternoon. If your body slowed, you listened, because ignoring it meant mistakes. Dropping a pot, missing a step, forgetting to latch the door when the wolves were too close. And mistakes had consequences. So sleep wasn't something you earned with a productive day. It was something that flowed with the day. You might nap after the midday meal, just a short rest on a stool in the grass beside the fire. No alarms, no timer, no questioning whether it was good sleep hygiene. You were tired. You rested. The body knew. And that rhythm didn't just apply to nightfall. There was no need to power through. No cultural obsession with hustling. The work was already hard enough. Why make it harder by fighting your own fatigue? At night, no one told you to sleep at a certain hour. You lay down when the light faded, or the fire dimmed, or the village grew still. Some stayed up longer, some turned in early. But the rhythm wasn't imposed, it was lived. Your body told you when it needed rest, and you obeyed. There was no concept of, I'll catch up on sleep later. There was only now, the present moment, the soft animal truth of your own breath slowing, shoulders dropping, eyes going heavy, and that truth was enough. Because when sleep becomes something you feel instead of something you schedule, you don't miss it, you meet it. No beeping, no buzzing, no jolting out of a dream with your heart racing. That's the 12th secret. Waking wasn't an alarm, it was a return. You woke because light was touching your eyelids, because the rooster had started calling, because someone was moving nearby, stoking the fire or opening the door to let the morning in. It wasn't abrupt, it was gradual, sensory. Your body rose instead of snapping awake. The sun woke the animals, who woke the people. The fire crackling again told you morning had begun. You smelled something warm, bread being set to bake, porridge stirred slow. Maybe the frost on the walls was melting already. Maybe it was still there, still sharp, still sparkling in the early light. But either way, you weren't startled out of sleep. You blinked slowly, rolled to your side, felt the weight of the blanket, the breath of the person next to you. You didn't rush to your feet or slam your hand against a clock. There was no dread. There was no dread because there was no artificial urgency. Yes, there was work to do, but not now, not this second. You had a few minutes. You could sit, stretch, let your thoughts arrive before your feet hit the ground. Waking didn't break the spell of sleep. It completed it. You stepped out of your dreams slowly, like climbing a ladder from water. Your heart didn't race, your mind didn't scatter, because the world you woke up into still belonged to you. It smelled right. It sounded right. It matched the rhythm you'd been swimming in all night. And maybe that's what made medieval sleep so restorative. It wasn't just that they fell asleep better, it was that they woke up kinder. They didn't have gyms, or fitness apps, or smartwatches buzzing on their wrists telling them to stand. But medieval peasants had something better. They knew their bodies, and they treated them like tools, like instruments. That's the 13th secret. Their bodies were in tune with their lives. They rose with the sun not to be productive, but because the light called them. They walked not to burn calories, but because walking was living, fetching water, tending animals, carrying wood, crossing the field to visit someone half a village away. Their muscles didn't rest in chairs all day. Their eyes weren't locked to blue glowing rectangles. Their legs didn't forget what movement was for. So when they lay down at night, their bodies didn't argue. There was no fidgeting, no restless limbs or cramped necks, no tossing because your back had been locked in one position all day. Their backs bent, but they moved. Their hands ached, but they worked. Their feet hurt, but they carried them. That use, that rhythm, that wearing down meant their bodies were ready for rest. Sleep wasn't something they earned like a badge. It was something they slipped into, like a well-worn coat, a natural next step after a full day. And pain didn't stop them. It was just part of the dialogue. A dull throb in the knees after planting, a pinch in the fingers after spinning. But none of it shocked them. It was familiar, and they knew how to listen to it. They knew that a stretch by the hearth mattered more than a medicine, that a walk before dusk could loosen what felt locked, that sometimes sitting still for just a minute could fix what shouting at the sky never would. So they didn't demand more of their bodies than their bodies could give, and in return, their bodies gave them rest. We treat nighttime like something to guard against. We bolt our doors, we leave lights on. We keep our minds busy so they won't drift into the quiet too fast. For us, the night is something we try to outlast. But for medieval peasants, the night wasn't an intruder. It was a companion. That's the 14th secret. They didn't fear the dark. They walked with it. Night wasn't when the day ended. It was when a different kind of life began. A slower one, a gentler one made of silence, breath, and the crackle of fire. You didn't dread it. You didn't fight it. You welcomed it like a returning friend. You knew its shape, how the shadows stretched across the floor in familiar patterns, how the sound of the owl meant midnight was near, how the wind shifted direction sometime around 3 a.m. You trusted it, and that trust meant you could relax inside it. Night wasn't hiding monsters. It was holding you, wrapping you, tucking you in beneath layers of straw and wool and story. You didn't need distractions to feel safe. The quiet was enough. Sometimes you walked out into it, to check the animals, to fetch water, to relieve yourself. You stepped outside, looked up, and saw stars. Not through a screen, but through a sky so wide it felt like breath. The same stars your grandparents saw, the same ones your children would, and then you came back in. Let the chill fade from your skin, curled close to the fire, or to another body, and let the dark settle around you like sleep itself. Because you weren't resisting the night, you were living inside it, and the sleep that followed, it wasn't escape, it was belonging. We try so hard to fall asleep, we count breaths, count sheep, adjust pillows, dim lights, read tips, scroll advice. Worry about not sleeping until the not sleeping becomes its own kind of exhaustion. But medieval peasants didn't chase sleep. They let it find them. That's the 15th and final secret. Sleep wasn't a goal. It was a given. You didn't ask, will I sleep tonight? You just lay down when the day was over, and you did. There was no pressure to get enough. No guilt over bedtime routines. No apps tracking your REM cycles. You didn't wake up and grade your rest. You simply lived until your body asked to stop. And when it did, you stopped. Sleep came when it was ready, like weather, like dusk, like a slow tide pulling you into the deep without effort. You didn't manage your sleep. You made space for it. You aligned your life around its natural rise and fall, just like you did the sun, just like you did the seasons. And that, more than any blanket or bed or breathing trick, was the real magic. Letting go, no fixing, no chasing, no optimizing, just being tired and letting sleep have you. The fire cooled, the sky darkened, the wind calmed, your breath slowed, and that was enough. So that's the story. Not of kings or battles, but of sleep. The kind of sleep that didn't need a prescription, that didn't require silence or perfection. That came when the body was ready and the world didn't interrupt. Medieval peasants didn't have much, but they had this, a life that aligned with the dark, a rhythm that didn't fight the night, a kind of tiredness that led not to collapse, but to peace. If this slow walk through the past helped you relax, feel free to like the video and subscribe. It helps more than you might think. And if you're still awake, drop a comment. Where are you listening from? What time is it right now? There's something comforting about knowing we're scattered across the world, all drifting into sleep together through the same story. So take one last deep breath, let it out slow, and sleep like the fire is warm, like the fields are quiet, like the work is done. You're allowed to rest now. Good night.